Welcome to Money Daily. Palantir CEO Alex Karp talked about something deeply thought-provoking in an interview. He said that the very top people in the world, true outliers, are genuinely wired differently. Their brains are not the same as everyone else's. In his view, America's long-term technological leadership doesn't come from policy, and it doesn't come from money. It comes from culture. A culture that knows how to recognize these rare individuals, accept them, and most importantly, activate and unleash the potential of a very small number of true geniuses.
The very best in the world.
The very, very best in the world are, the brain structure is different. And one of the things that our institutions underestimate, but we have an advantage in America because we have this tech scene, is the people think that there's they're with a standard deviation of the best if you're the second best, but it's not. It's just a different universe. It's not true. Yeah. And you see this in software and building software products. The very best in the world, the people who built PG, the brain structure, the way of solving problems, it is not at all similar to how, I don't want to mention their last names because I think one of them is happily not famous. But,
I think a picture comes out for him when he searches online.
On PG with Bob, there are very few people who could have pulled that off. And I think and I would say if you took Ryan and Bob and put them in an academic context, I don't think Bob McGrew minds. I'll leave Ryan's last name out, but they would do very, very well.
Yeah, well, Bob obviously went on to OpenAI to do very important work there. It's an interesting point about talent that I think you framed in a way. It was very helpful to think about that you actually have to be within a couple of standard deviations to even appreciate this. And so I think a big problem with a lot of our institutions, for example, around the Pentagon, is if you have people who are only one standard deviation above, they can't even tell a difference between 4 and 5. And they have no idea what's even going on at those levels. So you need people who are good enough to even appreciate that.
We have a huge advantage, and let's just take U.S. commercial. This is a really true thing and really not understood, that to appreciate talent, you need to be within standard deviation of that talent. Unless you have some specialized weird, this is where, for whatever reason, I think I have some kind of weird ability where, I have picked some of the best and managed some of the best engineers in the world consistently. Larger institutions struggle in some cases because they think they can't tell the difference between.
Well, I think it's almost like those cultures reject these people who are extremely good, right?
But again, to your American optimism thing, which I share, and we have a culture that nurtures them, allows them to be managed, provides capital, teaches them. One of the things I think people get wrong is you don't learn to win by failing. You learn to win by working with people who have ups and downs and then win. So there's a deep understanding, whether they work with you at 8VC or they work with others, some of whom I like and some of whom I don't, but you do learn what it means to build business. And in the American commercial context, especially, you have this high turnover. So it's like people really do, the people running these institutions on the tech side, 5 years ago, CIOs didn't buy our product. Now they do. Because there's this plasticity of learning in the US, which is something that I think other countries struggle with. That it is true that identifying the difference between, Bob and Ryan and any very strong normal engineer is something that takes specialized. Quite frankly, I think it's very similar to music. Very few people can hear the blue note. Almost no one can play it. What we do in tech is we hear the blue note on the tech talent side, which very few people, it's like you roll 3 crazy people into a room and a very talented normal person will pick the one person who's moderately talented. Whereas if you roll those 3 people into Palantir or to your VC, we'll be like, no, we want that one. And that's great. Then you have to be able to manage that person.
Many institutions tend to underestimate the gap between top-tier talent. They assume that the second best person is just slightly worse than the best, that the difference is marginal. But in real software and technology, that gap isn't small at all. It's not incremental, it's astronomical. The very best people operate in a completely different universe. The way they think about problems, the way they design systems, is based on an entirely different cognitive structure. Karp recalled that in Palantir's early team, there were several engineers whose abilities were almost impossible to measure using traditional standards. In that early Palantir group, some later went on to play key roles in founding OpenAI, but before that, they were already at Palantir. Their way of solving problems was wildly unconventional, yet extremely logical, with rigor taken to the extreme. People at that level are incredibly rare. There are only a handful like them in the entire world. He then pointed out a fact that is often ignored. Many large institutions, which he has openly criticized, are run by managers who are intelligent, but usually only slightly above average. The problem is, people at that level simply cannot distinguish between different tiers of top genius. They can't even tell the difference between what might be a fourth tier and a fifth tier elite mind. And if you can't see the difference, you obviously don't know how to manage true outliers. This, Karp argues, is exactly where the advantage of the American tech industry lies. It's not just that there are geniuses here. There is an entire system that can recognize them, nurture them, understand them, give them resources, and take risks on them. Karp believes that to truly understand top talent, you yourself need to be close to that level, within the same standard deviation. People like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, for example, weren't that far apart. Otherwise, you may not even realize what makes the other person special. That's why Musk was pushed out by PayPal's board. They thought he was strange, but Peter Thiel stayed closely connected with Musk the entire time. This is also why many large institutions instinctively reject extremely exceptional people. They're too unconventional, too non-standard, too difficult for ordinary organizational culture to absorb. Silicon Valley is different. Its culture is more open, more tolerant, backed by capital, tolerant of failure, and it has an almost instinctive respect for non-traditional genius. That's why the US continues to produce new tech giants. Think about Steve Jobs. In Apple's early days, he didn't wear shoes. He walked around barefoot or in Indian sandals. He didn't shower for long stretches of time. How many conventional managers could tolerate someone like that? Karp used a vivid metaphor. In music, only a tiny number of people can even hear what are called blue notes. Almost no one can actually play them. Technology is the same. The very best engineers and scientists can hear rhythms that others can't. They can solve problems that others don't even realize exist. Before you've even formulated the question, they already have the solution. American tech culture, he says, is a culture willing to listen to those difficult, dissonant notes. In the end, Karp said this might simply be his destiny, whether that's self-praise or self-criticism. His entire life has been spent searching for and managing the smartest and hardest to manage people. The process is incredibly challenging, but it is exactly these people who built Palantir and who define the unique advantage of American technology. So how does Palantir train and manage top-tier talent? Karp's latest off-the-cuff speech after a ski trip, in my view, offers an indirect answer.
We at Palantir are deeply grateful for your support, your generosity. We know how courageous many of you have been to support us in public and in private, while we attempt to support the warfighters and others who do deeply important and often dangerous things to secure our way of life that undergird the superiority of the West. We believe Palantir is a metaphor for the splendor and artistry and discipline necessary to build great things, what has made the West great over thousands of years. And one of the reasons I do this video on cross-country skiing is it's a very similar analogy. You train and train and train to get your VO2 max where it could work. You train the technique, you train strength, you train all year while everyone is having fun. You're just training and sleeping and training and working. And then you get to enjoy the splendor of gliding across the snow, gliding uphill, just suspending gravity. In many ways, that's what Palantir did in the last couple years. We suspended the gravity that was apparently the viscosity that was going to hold down the true greatness of our ability to make institutions, especially in the West, stronger, better, more secure, make American and other workers better in their job, raise their pricing parity, make American soldiers, warfighters deadlier, safer, protect data.
He started by talking about skiing. He had been skiing for a long time, and then spoke off the cuff. He said they believe the word pioneer is not just a technical metaphor. It represents the art, the discipline, and the will required to create something truly great. He used skiing as a metaphor since he was skiing himself. In cross-country skiing, he said, you have to train year-round. You have to train your VO2 max, the maximum amount of oxygen your body can take in during intense exercise. This can only be increased through long-term training, allowing you to absorb more oxygen with every breath. It's a key indicator of endurance and physical limits. To raise it, you have to train for a very, very long time. You also have to build strength, which, again, takes years of training. You go through all 4 seasons of training. When others are playing, you're training. Then, when snow season finally comes, this video was posted around Christmas, that's when you get to experience that feeling, the beauty of gliding across the snow. Even when you're going uphill, you can have this strange illusion. You feel weightless, as if gravity has been temporarily suspended. Gravity feels like it's been hung up for a moment. You look effortless. You look smooth. Even uphill, you glide as if you're floating past it. But the key point he wanted to emphasize is this. That smoothness, that effortlessness, is entirely built on years of accumulated training. And that metaphor is exactly how Palantir trains top talent. Look at the people skiing with him, some executives, though it's not clear who exactly. They're like professional skiers, enduring long cycles of repetitive, boring, systematic pressure, constantly pushing their limits. Palantir's culture is about creating this kind of environment, one of continuous training. He compares internal growth at the company to this kind of training. Engineers, product managers, algorithm teams, all of them have to go through what he calls a sticky phase. It feels like you're stuck, like something is holding you back. Progress feels like moving through deep, heavy snow. You can't glide. Every step is exhausting. Every bit of progress has to be built through sheer resilience. Palantir doesn't chase short-term explosions. Instead, it trains people who can move forward through resistance. As long as you keep accumulating, keep adjusting, keep refining, eventually you hit a critical threshold. At that point, gravity suddenly feels lighter. Human capability, product value, and market understanding all start to flow together. Karp said this describes the past 2 years at the company. They faced enormous resistance, but they didn't stop. Like skiers, they trained everyone over the long term. Strength, rhythm, resilience, until the entire team could produce smoothly under pressure. And this kind of training is, at its core, Palantir's investment in talent. Not by paying the highest bonuses, but by putting people through intense, high-pressure, often boring processes that fundamentally reshape how they think. In that process, ordinary people are filtered out. Top talent is forged. So when Karp says that over the past 1 or 2 years, it felt like gravity was suspended, it's a romantic metaphor. But it's also a metaphor for the team's psychological and technical maturity. Gravity never disappeared. It's still there. What changed is that the people became stronger. The team became stronger. They learned how to move forward under pressure, how to glide through resistance. That is how Palantir truly trains top-tier talent. And we know that many people question Palantir's model, sending engineering teams directly into other companies. Is that even scalable? Is that model viable? Maybe it only works inside Palantir's unique system. For other companies, trying to copy it would be extremely difficult. Thanks for watching. This is Money Daily. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and click the bell. See you next time.